Okay, well, welcome North members to another edition of our Q&A series, and we are delighted to have the new North Melbourne coach, David Noble, with us. Nobes, thank you so much for giving us some of your time. I know how busy you are at the moment with your feet under the desk now and a lot on your plate.
It's a pleasure, Heath. It's great to be here and get to, at least virtually, answer some questions for our members. It's very exciting, so I'm looking forward to it.
So we've got a lot of questions that we had come through all our various platforms. So we'll kick it off straight away. Tom Pike is asking, what are 2 or 3 non-negotiables you want to instill in the playing group, but also the organisation as a whole?
I think that one of the big ones, Tom, in that alignment piece that we talk about, which I think is, it's a lot of it's in place, is team first. You know, the capacity to put the team in front of ourselves for the benefit. And I think, again, you'll hear me talk about this a little bit ad nauseum, is the reliability, our capacity to get out on the field, in training, internally, to be reliable for what we say, and we've got to stand behind what we say.
The next one comes from Jane Terrain, 07 on Twitter. What is the particular set of attributes you seek or admire in a player? And do you have any examples of who epitomised those attributes in your career?
I do. Probably a little bit unfair, Jane, to single individuals out, I think, in this sense. But I like players that train really hard. I like players that care. I like players that aspire and ambitious to get to the point of having success. I think the dynamic of success is shifted a little bit in the player space. So we'll work with those. We want to make our place an engaging, happy, fun environment. And then I think as a result of that, the people that have got positive growth mindsets are generally the ones that can move your dynamic forward. So they're the traits that I like.
Ash Munro says, "G'day, Dave. Welcome to the club, fella." As a member,
thanks, Ash,
and as a player sponsor, what does a North Melbourne side under David Noble look like? Us fans are fed up with the constant media beat up. I think he means the beating up on us by the media. How do we become relevant again?
We have to be consistent with what we do on a regular basis. The game plan that we want to put in place, we want to kick more goals. I've sort of made that public. We want to defend really hard. We need to put a lot of ball pressure on, the ball carrier. So they're the attributes. Now, how the game shapes out is a little bit difficult in sort of the short amount of time we've got. But if we can get that in our game, then I think what will happen is, don't worry about the media. As long as we know what we're doing internally and we tell our members what's going on, you guys will have the same message of what the players will, and we'll be able to put that out in a public forum.
Michael Ardrey, with reference to recent interviews that you've done outlining your own values and how they were a good fit with ours as a club, are you able to detail the values for the wider football community and why you seem to resonate so strongly with North Melbourne so instantly?
Yeah, look, there's a couple of values that are sitting, behind me. The family, the ruthlessness, they fit really well. But it goes deeper than that because, as I mentioned at the committee and the board, the genuineness, the authenticity, the spirit, the shin boner, is embedded in our place from a long, long time ago. And that really resonates with me. No nonsense, roll your sleeves up, excuse the French, but get shit done. I'm a doer, and we want to get that stuff done.
Paul Falakis, hello, David. Firstly, congratulations on your appointment. I would like to know how you would describe yourself as a coach to the fans and the members.
G'day, Paul. I was thinking about, someone may ask me about this. I'll be hard, I'll be demanding, and I'll be caring all at the same time. I think that's really important. We'll coach positive. The coaching team is going to coach off a positive platform. So we'll take the things that we're really good at. We're not going to ignore the things that we're not so good at, but they will come. But yeah, they're probably, demanding is one that comes to mind, and there'll be standards that we'll set that we'll want to hold ourselves account to.
Just as an add-on to that, Dave, do you think that there'll be an element of you feeling your way through it and, evolving, I suppose, as a coach, even though you have done it before and you have a long history?
Yeah, I think that's right, Ash. I think as you get to learn the group, as the group takes more accountability for their actions on field, like we want them to be able to make decisions on the field, to manage the game from their perspective. And so I think you need to learn and adjust as you go. No doubt about that. So maybe I won't be as demanding in 12 months' time as maybe what I start with.
A couple of members sent in a similar question. So Jordan Peele and David Glover had a similar sort of a sentiment with their question. So we've sort of merged this one. First of all, welcome, David. Look forward to an exciting period ahead. What was the number one reason for you wanting to take the role, considering there was some others out there saying that, don't touch North Melbourne, blah, 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 all that rubbish. These guys say they know they're biased, but personally they think it's the opposite. It's a perfect opportunity for someone to come in and take hold of North Melbourne.
Absolutely. That's my DNA. If you look through my career with where I've gone, I guess, and what I've achieved along the way, as long I'm a big researcher, so I did a lot of research in regards to where the club was positioned. And I think I've made mention before, guys, the shift and the move that the club had already started. To me, that was a club that had made some really calculated decisions as to where it wanted to go. I agree. It's exciting. Taking on a club that finished down the bottom end of the ladder does not frighten me at all, because I think there are some avenues, and what I've found already from the feedback from the players, they're highly energised, they're highly charged. They've really given me a really big shot in the arm, and I can't wait for them to get back in on the 7th.
Christy D wants to know how you'll make North Melbourne a destination club.
Well, Christy, we want to under-promise and over-deliver is one of the key things. People need to see what we stand for. And I think if you look at, and I'll try not to continue to refer back to Brisbane, but I think if you look at Brisbane, the manner in which they play, you see the enjoyment, you see the connection on the field. We want to let our work, display and show what we stand for. And I think behind the scenes, I've already found some really good systems. We've got some great people on board that will be able to then make our area a consideration for other people.
Moving on to a bit of a topic on players and more about the list now, David. Dave Thomas and Ashlyn Harper again had a similar question, but they want to know which player, and you might not want to single out, but which player are you most excited about working with, and who are the players that you see developing most next year?
Yeah, thanks, Dave and Ash. No pressure for putting me on the spot to pick my favourites already. No, look, well, off the bat, what excites me is the ability to get to learn a new range of people, to understand some of our talent. I've sort of known of Goldie and Jack and Ben for a little while. So I think the group in there for me, there'll be a bunch of that mid-range guys that I think will move in regards to that dynamic on their game. And then I think from the older guys, I'll probably be careful, not the mature guys. We want to add some new skills into them. Now, some of those will be leadership skills. Some will be a little bit more around retuning some of their skills for the game. But ultimately, we want to shift together. So I think keep your eye on that group that are in that 20 to 23-year-old bracket. That's what I'm sensing. I think that group is ready to put their hand up and make a mark.
A question from Luke Gibson about Jared Pollock. What do you see his role as being next year? He obviously has a lot of ability, but will he need to work on his defensive game?
Yeah, good question, Luke. I've had a good conversation with Jared. I've come across Jared a few times across my journey. When I was in Adelaide before he got drafted, and then when he came back to Port Adelaide. So I've spoken to Jared a few times across the journey. Yeah, he does have to work on his defence. There's no doubt about it. But let's not forget about the strength and the weapon that he's got with his running capacity. Maybe he hasn't quite hit that mark that I see him getting to. But if we can readjust his defence in a sense of where he might start his offence from, that will actually help us. So he's a really knowledgeable young man. He has good football knowledge. I'm going to be encouraging him to have that voice out on the field. I think it's something that we need to encourage. We need our smart players to be able to help us set up with structures and understanding what's happening in the game. So I'm excited to work with Jared. I think he's got some big upside in regards to the things that he's actually really good at. His run, his ball carry, his delivery inside 50. Like, he can really help us. But I agree in that his defence got to be tweaked up a bit.
How will you maximise the potential of each player and develop a game style that suits their skills and wins games, of course? And that comes from Barry Sorahan.
Yep, good question, Barry. I actually got posed this at the committee. I think one of my strengths is uniting behaviours and skills, being around a long period of time with the connection of different roles and experience. So our capacity with our coaching group, and with Heath Uni coming on board, in that understanding of development with Brownie and Lee, we will target our strengths. We'll encourage our players to take those strengths into our game. We won't just have one necessary, mode of playing in offense. We'll have to just play the game a little bit as we see it and what defence is in front of us. But yeah, uniting, harnessing each individual strengths at game day to tip into our game plan is crucial, and that's what we'll go for.
Ian Stott says that he's excited by the shift in age profile, which will likely make us one of the youngest teams in the competition. We have a solid core of experienced players, but 2020 injuries highlighted a lack of depth. Are there plans to use the free agency or preseason draft to add some experience support, sort of like the Luke Hodge experiment, I suppose, in Brisbane?
Yeah, it's only one Luke Hodge. I actually rang him yesterday to talk to him about a couple of other things. He doesn't want to come down here. He's enjoying the sun too much.
He's pretty happy up there, yeah.
He is, yeah. But having said that, you're right. The demographic is exciting. We will work with that. We'll create our own depth. That takes a little bit of time. We want to create internal pressure. That actually helps your depth as well. Our viability and options moving forward in the next year or two is about DFAs, delisted free agents. It is about trade acquisitions. We'll look at that. The guys have already been briefed me on the strategy for the next sort of this short period of time. So it's an option that we'll consider. I'm not saying we'll necessarily go down with it, but I'm not the sort of person that will come in and demand that we need to go and get 3 delisted free agents. We'll work like crazy with our young guys and our older guys and build our depth as we go. But if the right person came along that fits the right need, then that will be a consideration. But it'll only be a consideration on those 2 basis points.
Gavin Simmons, where do you see our greatest weakness for 2021? He says, I rank our defence highly. Are we one tall forward short? We have the grunt in the midfield, but do we have the class?
I'm not so much worried about our class. I think we've got a pretty good blend across the ground. I'm reasonably comfortable with that. How we execute that on game day will be the coach's responsibility. Probably speed, I think. If you look at what we did in the trade period, Aidan Corr's not slow. He's a really good, got good toe as a defender, whether he plays as a key for a little bit or as a third. And the other 3 guys that we brought in are Jaden and Lockie. They've all got genuine speed. So we're looking forward to getting that into the game. So I think that the structure of our midfield will become important, that we don't become too heavy. Like, that's a great strength that we've got that inside ball hunters. And then it's to balance with some speed and spread across the ground.
Neil Smith says, as we move towards 2021, what do you see as some of the key potential upsides within the playing group, and how will your coaching group seek to accelerate those upsides?
I think what you get, Neil, is you get a brand set of new eyes where players feel like they can, experiment, take on a new opportunity, talk to different guys about maybe backline roles versus forward line roles, midfield roles versus half forward roles. We want flexibility in that to be able to create the opportunity for some of our mids that actually need to go forward now. We've only got 75 rotations. We're going to need to have that flexibility and think a little bit more laterally about what happens when Jed comes out of the midfield. Where can Jai go? What does Ben do? Can Jack come into the midfield a little bit now if we get him, his body right? So they're all the bits that I think, and we'll encourage that as a coaching group. We'll encourage that option to look, and then we'll assess where the best option is, and we'll have a really close, diligent program in our development that will help shape some of that progression.
Graham Smith wants to talk about Nick Larkey. He says that he has enormous potential to be our full forward for many years to come. As a club, we've had success with 2 power forwards in the past. For example, Wayne Carey, Corey McKernan. Drew Petrie, Jared Waite in more recent times. Would you consider using Josh Walker as a marking forward to play alongside Larkey, or do we go to the draft and grab someone like a Logan McDonald with our pick number 2?
Was that Brian Heath, you said?
That was Graham Smith.
Sorry, Graham. You must have been on my conversation with Josh Walker. So I had a really good chat to Josh about that as an option. In Brisbane, he was played as a forward with some success because when he gets set and he gets some separation with his defender, he's a really good, clean set of hands. So we'll be open to that, absolutely. The young forwards, they need that support factor from time to time. So we'll keep that as an open option. Mind you, Josh finished in the top 10 of the BNF as a defender predominantly and did a really good job. So, but yeah, it is something that I've already spoken to Josh about. So it is a consideration. Good call.
And obviously, as an add-on to that, was he obviously open to that as well? Does he prefer playing down back, or is he open to playing forward?
He's got an option. It'd be unfair of me to say where that is, but he probably has a preference, but he understands that there may be a time where we just need an additional support and experienced campaigner to go and take another forward and help Cam or Larky out down forward if we need be. The other thing I'd say is we may well look at playing 2 rucks as well.
Yeah, okay.
So that may help.
We did see Josh do that at stages throughout the seasons, particularly toward the back end. He went forward a few times and he was amazing. He did really, really well. So
we know Goldie can go forward, mate. He's a dangerous forward. He's hard to match up on. And then what happens when you get a taller forward in your mix? You get a downgraded defender for the others. Your priority of who the defence has to take shifts. Mm-hmm. So for Larky and Zerhard, the options of who they now get becomes an advantage for you because you don't quite get the number 1 or the number 2 key defender on them.
Okay. Joffa Jasps from Twitter, could Jack Zeeble play half back role like Luke Hodge did in Brisbane?
Yes.
Say no more.
Good call, Joffa. Yeah, no, I think he can. How long he plays it for, but look, he's an experienced campaigner. I believe that he sees the game really well. There's no reason why he couldn't drop in there for a period of time. Again, that's I think one of the earlier questions was, what are we going to work on with some of these guys? That's an example of the older crew being a little bit open to some of those other areas. Look, if it doesn't work, mate, you put it away. But it may work for a period of time and then allow us to develop another person or another young guy in the half forward, in the mid. So that'll be something that we'll look at as we go.
Mark Herkmans said, our previous game plan had a lot of kicking long down the line to a contest. You've stated that you're looking for the team to kick more goals. Does that mean taking the game on more? Do you think we have the players to execute such a plan?
So the answer is yes. And do we have the players? Yeah, look, I believe so. Keep in mind, if you're able to move the ball in a certain style and a manner where you don't have as much pressure around the ball, your efficiency becomes better. If the players have an understanding of where the ball is going, then your patterns become better. And so there's an understanding and there's a trust factor that you build in that if I want to turn inside and hope there's a target there, the people that have been there previous need to exit, open up opportunities, and then the next person comes in. So there's a trust factor. But, yep, definitely I'd like to try to kick more goals. That's got to be built in the back end with good defence. We will not ignore our defence and have shootouts. But, yeah, the long down the line plays or the longer kicks, unfortunately, sort of stifles your angles of your entry, and your forwards tend to just have one pocket to sort of tend to go to. So we want to give them more scope to be in more dangerous positions.
Okay. Danny Curran's question probably links into that a little bit when you were talking about pressure around the ball and efficiency. He says North's main problem is field kicking followed by goal kicking. How are we going to develop into an elite kicking team capable of hitting targets under pressure?
Yep, spot on, Danny. Mind you, that the good bits, and Heath, you would have heard me talking about this, the good bits that I pulled out of our games, guys, this is to all our fans, I guess, I actually really like some of the ball movement. So if you took some really small sample size, our efficiency with our ball and what we did in finding that target was actually really good. So I will encourage that. I just had a half an hour meeting this morning with Gavin and Lee in regards to setting up our first drills for when we come back. A lot of it's around just skill execution. We won't put too much pressure in. We just want to get them to understand that there'll be some more requirement to take those kicks over 20, 25 metres, and we'll start that from the get-go.
Scott Dryburr says, my question is, what is your philosophy in the positions that you will look at playing potential players? For an example, he says, Kyron Hayden was initially groomed to be a tagger, then he was tried in defence, but played all his junior footy as a midfielder. So, yeah, I suppose, what's your philosophy on where you're going to put players and what's their best position?
Our sport is no different. I did a lot of research in baseball, and baseball, believe it or not, draft players in one position. I think in about 40% of the time, they end up landing in a different spot. So it's not unusual for us to experiment. I think what we do in that space is you assess where players. So some players read the ball better from behind the ball than in front. Other players are able to get separation better, even though they might have been drafted as a midfielder. They just seem to have an ability and a knack to be able to release a bit quicker. So there's no doubt I come in with some ideas on where I think players possibly will play their best football, but there's lots of anecdotal evidence around, players being able to retune a different skill set or being able to add a slightly different aspect of their game into a different team structure. So we'll be open, we'll challenge the players, we'll give them opportunities to seek that out, and we'll hopefully pick the right guys in the right spots.
I know you're going to really enjoy talking about this next person in this question from Jordan Volkers. Congratulations, David. Stoked to have you at North. From your experience working with Heath Uni, could you please provide an insight into what kind of coach and person he is and how he will be utilised in your coaching panel?
He is a double thumbs up, right? He was probably the first person that I targeted once Ben said, yep, you've got it, been to the board. I just love Heath's ability to develop the holistic person. He's got great acumen around what good looks like. From our players will be a really blessed, I think, to have Heath come on board. He's got a great wealth of knowledge. He's a teacher by nature and he's a teacher by trade. He's straight, he's direct, he's caring, and he'll challenge our guys to get better. So having someone that I know works in that space really well will help us. He's going to take a line role. We're not sure which one it'll be just at the moment. It'll be a mid or a forward. So he's ready to step up into that space and do a match day AFL role. But I'm very excited with the intellect that he's going to bring. And I was absolutely stoked. I had goosebumps on the back of the neck, mate, when he said, yes, he was coming. That's how I rate him. So I couldn't get him to Brisbane. I had a little bit of a go. But when I was lucky enough to get this gig, he was one that I targeted.
I don't think you could get a better endorsement than what you just gave him.
Yeah, double thumbs up.
Yeah, double thumbs up. That's brilliant. Yeah. I think that illustrates just how important he's going to be to us. So it's good to know. Yeah,
he's an understated guy. His work speaks for itself. He's not a self-promoter. He's very much a kangaroos type of person, and he will love this place as I have in the first 7 days.
Martin Pegan, you've said assistant coaches will take on important tasks like running main training sessions. Yeah. What's your approach to embolden players and set standards and expand their responsibilities? And what's your ideal makeup and structure of the leadership group?
Yep, thanks, Martin. The players will be up for responsibility for training as well. Like we need to teach them about how the game unfolds, their ability to adjust. A wingman in a game that is tight is different to a wingman in a game where it's bouncing upwards, backwards, and forwards up the ground with no stoppages. So we need to educate the guys around what that is, and they need to help us take responsibility for that on the field. So we'll challenge them in that. We'll get them to take some of the meetings. We'll get them to take some of the video reviews. Like we'll give them that responsibility to learn in that space. So the leadership one's an interesting one. We're just working through the program at the moment as to who we land with in that space. We're keen to explore. We're looking and talking to a couple of organisations in regards to what that leadership will look like. I've worked with leading teams previously. That may be an organisation of interest to us, and we've got a couple of others that are on the go as well.
And also, I suppose you've got Paul Roos there as well.
Yep.
Will he potentially have input into that too?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's some opportunity for Paul to mentor players, staff, across the board. great amount of experience. Just has a really, calm nature, about him. I haven't worked with Roosie previously, but I'm looking forward to him giving me a bit of a hand as a counsel from time to time, and just tugging on my, my shirt tails to say, look, just ease up a bit, or push on.
Perfect. Bradley Wood, hi David. How do we teach players to impact games and contests better? It's something I've seen the top clubs do very well. That is tackle, spoil, knock the ball on, stop the opponent from winning the ball.
I think, Scott, well, no, I believe.
This one's Brad.
Sorry, Brad, my mistake. What gets measured gets valued. So if we value that, if we want to build in those aspects that you mentioned there around some of the dynamic for finals type football, then we have to put it in. We have to review it. We have to assess it. We have to make it better, and it's got to be valued. So it'll go up on the board, each and every week in regards to what those attributes look like, and we'll continue to coach and embed those. So hopefully you see a shift in that space pretty quick.
Maggie headed, will you adopt the Shinboner spirit within the club, and how will you do that?
Yeah, Maggie, I feel like I've already been embedded into that already. The nature of people's engagement, the manner of how they've connected, the people that have reached out to me, the glowing nature that the players have spoken about it. I've even had some texts from I'll tell you who it was. It was Daryl Sutton's wife, Kathy. Daryl coached me in Tasmania. Daryl's a Shinboner, played here, came down and played in North Hobart. And she sent a message to my brother about the Shinboner spirit. And that means a lot. The embeddedness that Shinboner nature of our football club is across the ages. I'm really looking forward to speaking to some of our members in person, speaking to some of our past players. The past player project that we do here is just, it's awesome. Ben gave you the Shinboner book, straight off the bat. I've started to have a flick through that. So I love those cultural businesses, organisations that have that at their core, and we've got it. So we're going to embrace it, and I'll certainly embrace it, and certainly be working on that to add my part of my DNA into that cultural piece.
Great to hear, mate. Ross Ship, great to have you on board, David. Being very honest and open, what is your comprehensive view of the North Melbourne Football Club from the outside prior to your phone call from Paul Roos, please? Yeah,
look, we were probably a group that was a little unsettled. That's what it sort of looked like. I wouldn't say it was a basket case or a disaster or any of the like, but it just looked a little bit unsettled. But having said that, and we talked about that, Heath, early on, that it had made some steps to address that very, very clearly. Over the last 12 or 18 months, it had shifted. Scotty Clayton coming on board is a great operator. Look, the time I've spent with Brady over the GM, I found him to be a real pro. He's going to be a good operator. Glenn Luff, I know the work that Lee and Brownie have done here in that space. So the hard calls that they made with the delistings this year, and it's actually put us in an unbelievably strong position from list management, going forward with the adjustment in numbers and salary cap. So I felt that it was unsettled, but it looked like it actually had its act together. And then when you get on the inside, you go, yeah, we really have got our act together, and we can go really hard to get things set up how they should be set up.
Okay, last question comes from an Adam Marinello, and it's about one of the members' probably most favourite player, Ben Cunnington. Yep. How many times did it take before he answered the phone when you tried to ring him? How long did the conversation go for? And lastly, Adam Marinello wants to know, how excited are you to coach a guy of Ben's ability, knowing that obviously he missed most of last season due to injury?
Gee whiz. Thanks, Adam. I think it was 3 times. but that was, he'd rung back. I'd missed him. I was on another call. I rang him back in between, missed him again. So he was down at the farm.
Of course.
He's got a couple of 100 acres down there doing with some cattle, which is great. So I love that side. I've got a lot of respect for our cockies across the country. Having worked in New South Wales, I met a lot of them down through there. He's in good shape. He was, as he would be, as he's pretty relaxed, pretty chilled out. I just said to him, look, take your time. We want you to be in the team for a long time, not a short time. So there's no need to rush. Let's just get you right, get you fit. How excited am I? Yeah, look, I've been lucky enough to have some contact with some real stars over my journey. You know, the Eddie Betts, the Lachie Neals, the Luke Hodges, Charlie Camerons. And what I know about Ben is that he wants to get better. And when you've got a champion, you know, like Ben, that continues to want to get better. I mean, he could just sit back on his laurels and go, you know what, I'm pretty good as it is, but that's not his nature. So for me, I think when you've got those stars, mate, what you do is you just guide them. You just, you know, a little bit over here or a little bit over there. I don't need to do too much, but to encourage and bring him along with the areas that he wants to achieve within the game. That's what I think my role is to not change him too much, not to try to have too much influence, but challenge him, you know, challenge him to get better. But just take a nice little guiding hand and say, well, look, where are we going? What do you want to do? And then let's just see what, but yeah, he's a bloody star. Let's be honest. So I'm very excited to be working with him.
Did he ask you
a very understated star, mind you.
Absolutely. Did he ask you whether you like fishing?
No, but I did say to him, if you happen to get some, you know, nice prime beef that you might be chopping up down on the farm, it'd be nice to get a few steaks or something from it. But
I'm vegan, so we might end this conversation now. Dave.
Sorry.
Nah.
Sorry.
All good, mate. All good. Hey, thank you so much for your time. We've had a lot of questions from members, and to the members that sent questions in that we didn't read your name out, we apologise for that, but we've got time constraints, and also a lot of the questions were very similar as well in their nature. So we've tried to encapsulate the themes in the questions that we've asked so far. But you've been extremely open, honest, and transparent, David, and I'm sure all the members appreciate it. So we thank you for your time. And we'll let you be now. You've got a lot to organise, and we'll talk to you soon.
Always happy to spend time talking to our members, mate. You know that.
Perfect. Thanks, mate.
Pleasure.